panicking. We do have a number of communities, of course, that received an alert on their phone from the National Weather Service regarding the tsunami warning. That is the highest level of warning for tsunami that they have. And we've been encouraging folks to revisit their family escape plans and follow those tsunami evacuation routes in their community. National Weather Service recommends going inland 1 mile or above sea level 100 feet during a tsunami warning.
Justin, as we look at these live pictures along the coast there in San Francisco, we see people still walking along the beach. Had anyone from San Francisco Fire been out there warning folks who just were walking along the beach? What was your role in this while this was happening?
So the fire department has a set list of policies that we follow following an earthquake. So all of our fire engines and ladder trucks will go out into the community and survey for damage. Because we weren't finding a lot of damage, we shifted towards the tsunami warning. And we're encouraging folks to please stay away from the coastline, stay away from the water. There is nothing to see at the coast during a tsunami warning. You will not see a big wave. You will not see anything. The only thing you will do is endanger rescuers who are sent to save you.
Yeah, and even before the tsunami warning expired just a few moments ago, there were plenty of people out there on the beach, and of course we have your men and women who are out there kind of keeping the eye on things and are responsible for saving lives in there, but we still see people who, even though the warning just expired, they seem to have been out there for a little bit while longer when the tsunami warning was in effect. So what else do you want to tell folks out there, or what other update do you want to give us about the situation that we're in right now? I mean, the tsunami warning's expired, and we're still in the early stages. It's 7.0. You weren't seeing any damage, but what are you kind of looking out for at this point?
What we're looking at right now is seeing how our community responds to the alerts that we've set up. You know, we had the alert come out to the mobile devices from the National Weather Service. We're also using social and sharing media to get the message out. We're using television and radio. A lot of different agencies up and down the Oregon and California coast have been trying to get this preparation information out for years about what to do if there's a tsunami warning. Well, today we had one, and we're hoping that our communities listened to it and took action. Even if the National Weather Service says, never mind, you know, we over-anticipated this, we're not seeing any reports of large wave activity between us and the epicenter as of now, which may lead to them decreasing this. But as a community, we need to remember that this was not a false alarm. This was a real concern, and we need to be prepared for it.
A real concern, and we heard Bill Martin, who's been covering the weather in our area for decades, just let people know that this is serious because we don't get them too often here, and when a tsunami warning does take effect, you really do have to listen to it. Let me ask you one last question here. The folks up north in Humboldt County, is there some sort of mutual aid that you'll provide to them if there is help that's needed for that area?
The Governor's Office of Emergency Preparedness and Emergency Services can request resources that they have pre-deployed in San Francisco. We have not received any requests as of now.
All right, Captain Justin Schur with the San Francisco Fire Department, thank you so much for sharing what you know and the work that you all are doing out there right now in the community. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Be safe, everyone.
You're watching KTVU Fox 2 News at noon. The News at Noon starts now.
This is KTVU Fox 2 News at Noon.
Good afternoon. I'm Andre Sr. Thank you for joining us, and we begin with breaking news. A strong earthquake was felt widely across Northern California. There was a tsunami warning, but it hasn't been lifted. It just happened just a few minutes ago. Now, the quake struck at 10:44 west of Ferndale, a small city in coastal Humboldt County near the Oregon border. It was a 7.0 magnitude quake. The shaking was felt here in the Bay Area. BART was holding trains from the Transbay Tube. It's now been starting moving again. Several Bay Area county offices have been evacuated, and we have team coverage for you this noontime. KTVU's James Torres joins us live in studio with reaction to all of this. Good afternoon, James.
And good afternoon to you, Andre. Everything I'm about to show you now is all just really easy resources that you can easily check out at home, but we're just kind of showing you what we're able to see right now. We'll start, of course, with Facebook, just simply asking you, what you felt. We had that large 7.0 earthquake that led to a number of aftershocks kind of all throughout the Northern California region. And that means some of us in the Bay Area might have felt a little bit of something. We saw some people commenting from San Leandro saying they felt something. Not so much in San Lorenzo. One person says they felt it in South San Francisco, another in Santa Cruz County. Let's talk about San Francisco here, because the fire department put out this alert here saying, of course, we are going to expect some of these aftershocks. So watch out for any broken glass, fallen items, check in with family, and of course, just keep in mind that those aftershocks are possible. Evacuate if you smell any gas, smoke, or fire. Speaking of evacuations in San Francisco, the zoo has done that earlier this morning. They say because of that emergency and that tsunami warning, which remember, that warning has now expired. They say guests have been evacuated, animals are secured, staff have moved to higher ground. We are hearing that in a number of different cities throughout the Bay Area, including in West Berkeley. This is a Nixle alert. You can easily sign up for this. It'll give you alerts straight to your phone through a text message or through an email. It says, due to that tsunami warning, West Berkeley, parts of West Berkeley are now being asked to evacuate immediately, stay on higher ground. Again, that tsunami danger, that tsunami warning has now been canceled, but some of these evacuations are still in place. We saw video just moments ago of beaches being cleared out so people can stay away from the coast. That's still the message from a lot of fire departments locally, telling you stay away from the water, stay on higher ground until this whole event is entirely over. Now, we will take you back up to the North Bay. We did speak to the mayor of the city of Eureka, who kind of gave us an idea of what they're looking at and what their evacuations are looking like.
Currently, we are doing evacuations in some of the areas that could potentially be affected by a tsunami, and that is just as preventative measures. We don't have any details in yet about damages that may or may not have happened, but I'm sure that that will be forthcoming.
And for the most part, we are checking in with a number of different places and cities all throughout the Northern California region. So far, not too many reports of any damages. The mayor of Eureka says places like the Marina, City Hall, the wastewater management plant have all been evacuated, basically because they're all lower level buildings. Anyone in the Bay Area, reminder, this is what the fire department is telling us, stay away from the beaches. You're not going to see anything worth being there for, and try to remain on higher ground until we get a complete all clear that this event is entirely over with. Andre, we'll send it back to you.
All right, James, thank you so much for that update. A good reminder to everyone there. The earthquake in Humboldt County impacting BART service here in the Bay Area. KTVU's Allie Rasmus joins us live with the impact on service. Allie.
Hey, Andre, we're at the West Oakland BART station, where up until just about 10 minutes ago, there were several dozen people out here in the plaza. And that's because for a period, for about 45 minutes, BART service was suspended following that earthquake that struck Northern California. Now, that's typical. Anytime there's an earthquake, BART always stops service. They check the tracks. They check the Transbay tube. They make sure that there's no damage or no problems before they resume service. We have just learned that 5 minutes ago, BART service has resumed. So now BART trains are running again, and we can now hear them going on the tracks here behind us. But we spoke to a man who was on board one of those BART trains from Vallejo here to headed into the city. And when he was at the West Oakland BART station behind us, that's when he got the alert and an overhead announcement from BART on the trains that there had been an earthquake and a tsunami alert. And so everyone had to get off the train and onto the platform. And he says at that moment, his fellow passengers calmly walked off the train. Everyone did as they were told, and there were a lot of people waiting kind of in a holding pattern to figure out what they do next. But he said that in the moment, it was a little bit unsettling. He told us his reaction when he heard that announcement.
I was scared. I was scared because we live all around water. I mean, everywhere you look, there's water. And, you know, what I saw in Japan with the tsunami and how high it was ridiculous. We can't outrun a tsunami. This is all flooded. So what are you going to do? I was praying. I do. I pray.
Again, that's the reaction from a BART passenger who heard about the alert and heard the overhead warning from BART to get off the trains. The good news, though, BART has resumed service, including service through the Transbay tube as of about 10 minutes ago. BART does say that there will be some residual delays because of having to stop service for about 45 minutes to check in the wake of that earthquake. And that tsunami warning, as you mentioned, has been lifted for our area. But it was a little bit disturbing for some passengers who hadn't experienced experienced this before to go through that. But again, BART service resumed about 10 minutes ago, and so trains are running again, including through the Transbay Tube into the city. Live at the West Oakland BART station, Allie Rasmus, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
That's certainly some welcome news for all the people that use BART every day. Thank you so much, Allie. Joining us now on the phone, former FEMA coordinator Mark Nouveau. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. You're actually with us on Zoom. That's good to know. Let's talk a little bit about the response here. We heard from the San Francisco Fire Department. We heard what the Eureka mayor said just a short time ago. What were you watching out for as being a former FEMA coordinator here when something like this happens?
Well, what we're trying to do is take a look. There's buoys located throughout the Pacific Ocean along the coastline, and those buoys are designed to give us readings for tsunami. So once the quake took place in Northern California, you're starting to look at those buoys. You're starting to launch Coast Guard to get out into the ocean area to see if they can pick up anything. They're taking a look at satellite imaging, trying to determine the extent of the earthquake and how big the tsunami was coming. How big that wave may have been. It looks like at this point, fingers crossed, we're not going to have too much of an incident here. What we are concerned about as we go forward, though, are aftershocks, which sometimes is just as damaging as the initial quake, Andre.
Yeah, we heard from a seismologist at USGS talk about the aftershocks here. But right now, as we effort to get more information about what happened in Humboldt County, because it was a 7.0 earthquake, significant still, and one that I think it was one about that size caused significant damage up in that area recently in the last couple of years. So what do you think is happening up there right now as we work and wait to get more information on the extent, if any, damage coming out of that area?
Yeah, you were right on with that. You know, not only have we had one previously, earthquake that caused extensive damage, hundreds of millions of dollars in Crescent City, and you've got evacuation taking place in that area too. But remember, this was 7.0. That's a large earthquake. Loma Prieta that struck the Bay Area did extensive damage was 6.9. So we're still at a point where we look at that and say, thank God nothing serious has happened so far that we're aware of. Let's keep an eye on the aftershocks. Let's be prepared. The good news is we're testing systems for emergency notification on cell phone, the tsunami warning system. All of those things are working well, which is good news.
Yeah, if you're not one of those people that got, if you have the MyShake app, I got the alert from Humboldt County, and then I got the tsunami warning on my phone, which I guess is the alert system that is directly linked to your cell phone provider or cell phone carrier, something like that. Something that the fire department, Cal Fire, I think, is adding for wildfires. They'll let you know when there's a serious wildfire in your neighborhood. So these are the things that, if nothing as serious has happened here, at the very least, we'll have a chance to have tested out the way we communicate, get that communication from these agencies, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And for our viewers, you can sign up for some of these alerts if you're not automatically getting through Nexel, Nixle. So that's important to know. But this is an unnoticed event, if you will. Wildfires we talk about, those are noticed events. We know what's coming for the most part. They start in a moment, but the damage we can foresee. When it comes to an unnoticed event like this, earthquake, tsunami, this gives us an idea of how we prepare for ourselves, and not only that, but the first responders, response community. So we're testing those systems. But I think it's important for viewers to understand this is an opportunity for themselves and their family. Are we ready if something takes place, whether it's a tsunami or an earthquake or whatever? Do we have those systems and communications for our family in place now? It's just a good reminder.
It is certainly a good reminder for many folks out there. If you live along the coast here in the Bay Area, and if you live in our region, especially since we are prone to having earthquakes, it's definitely good to have that information at the ready for you. Mark Nouveau, former FEMA coordinator, thank you so much for providing your insight this afternoon into what thankfully did not turn out to be much, but is helping us be on alert and have all the correct tools we need in place should something like this happen in the future. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Andre. Take care.
All right. Let's turn things over now to just Mark Tamayo. He is in the Weather Center with much more. Mark, this is something that you've been watching for us this morning. Can you tell us, give us an update? I think we're getting another information here.
Yeah.
NOAA has canceled the tsunami warning, so that's just what we reported on just a few minutes ago. It became official right now, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. Andre, NOAA canceled the tsunami warning. I checked out the time. That was about 11:54. The main event with the quake was at 10:44 this morning, so just over an hour. So whenever you get a quake in this portion of Northern California, they call it the triple junction, and there's a lot of seismic activity. And, of course, a 7.0 you definitely have to keep a watchful eye on. If you remember the Japan quake, that was so far away, it happened overnight, and that happened, that energy made its way to the Bay Area the next day. So we had a lot of time to prepare for that. But as you can see, the epicenter, that's the star off Cape Mendocino. That is so close to the Bay Area coastline, and that's right. That's why when you get a 7.0 quake like this, they have to issue those warnings to everybody to prepare for possibly a tsunami. Thankfully, that did not happen. But you can see the coverage in terms of what people were feeling across Northern California, and you can see some strong shaking, as you would expect, close to the epicenter, closer to McKinleyville, Eureka, Petrolia. I used to work in this television market up in Humboldt County. Just a lot of seismic action for this portion of the state. As we come in closer, there you can't see the epicenter, magnitude 7.0, and just that location, that is the area, the triple point, the triple junction they call it. That's where you have a lot of earthquake activity, and of course today, that 7.0 really jumping off the map here. As we come in closer, you would expect a lot of aftershocks with this, and so far you can see all these dots showing up on the maps here. You can see the basically corresponding to how long ago, whether it's an hour ago, a few minutes ago, and still a lot of activity. And you'd expect that with the magnitude 7.0. But once again, the headline, the tsunami warning, which was issued, going off on all the phones and everything like that, and on the radio and TV stations, that has now been dropped. And what happens is after that main event, that 7.0 quake that happened at 10:44 this morning, it takes time to figure out the dynamics of the quake and how much energy was released and if that could create a tsunami wave. And as Mark mentioned, there are specialized buoys. They're called dart buoys. They have sensors at the bottom of the ocean that can actually measure the weight of the ocean, the pressure. And when they detect a pressure change, that can be a good sign that there has been a tsunami. But thankfully, that has not been the case for today. And you can still see a lot of aftershocks for this portion of Northern California. I believe, do we have some cameras out there right now to show you, some live cameras? Of course, we always want to focus on the coastline and to see, whenever a tsunami warning is issued, to see if there's any activity with the currents, anything like that. Here's our live camera looking out toward the Golden Gate Bridge and out toward the Marin Headlands and Point Bonita. And a closer look here, looking out toward Ford Point for the Golden Gate Bridge. So thankfully, all is quiet, and that is a good development for this afternoon. And thankfully, that tsunami warning is no longer in place. But as Mark mentioned, this is always such a good reminder, because when you have something like this, you probably noticed it today. I know I did. It's like, wow, this event is happening right now. We do not have time to prepare. So now is the time to prepare. Here's a live camera looking out toward Ocean Beach. You can see some white water offshore there, but that's just linked to the surf. But this is the time to prepare, because this will happen again. And whenever you get a quake up toward Humboldt County, right around Cape Mendocino, we have very little warning time. That arrival time, in fact, was supposed to be right about now here in the Bay Area, right about 12:10 in San Francisco. So thankfully, that is not the case, and we'll keep an eye on the aftershocks for this portion of, at least for Northern California, right around the epicenter. We'll have more information coming up in just a little bit.
All right, Mark, thank you so much. We'll check in with you shortly. Next, we want to go to Elizabeth Valente, resident of Half Moon Bay, and she's also communications over at Stanford Children's Hospital. Elizabeth, what can you tell us about your experience here going through all of this?
Yeah, hi. So as soon as the earthquake happened, the next thing was, of course, the tsunami warning. As soon as that hit, I just quickly grabbed my emergency grab-and-go bag, which holds a lot of my important documents, as well as some of the medication and overnight clothes, and I jumped in the car. I was probably in my car probably around 11:15 and then heading towards the peninsula. It literally took me 45 minutes just to finally hit right where you're about to hit the 92 and 280. I live in Ocean Colony, which is right next to the Ritz, walkable to the water, and I wasn't taking any chances. You saw a lot of San Mateo County fire, as well as police officers coming up towards the 92, heading towards Half Moon Bay while I was on the corkscrew. And a lot of them were on motorcycles. There were a couple on SUVs. over near the 35 Skyway crossing. They had also stopped everyone from trying to come into Half Moon Bay as everybody was trying to leave Half Moon Bay. So again, it took me about 45 minutes to finally leave Half Moon Bay, which normally would take probably no more than about 15, 20 minutes. Normally.
Elizabeth, do you think this this specifically was of people leaving Half Moon Bay because of the tsunami warning, that you ran into all this traffic? And we're looking at a photo that that I believe you sent out a little bit earlier. Is that the reason why?
Absolutely. Normally around lunchtime or a little bit before, I'll head out to grab something. And normally you don't see this much traffic. And to see the stop and go that was going on any normal work day, absolutely. You might find something like this during Pumpkin Festival or any kind of major event going on in Half Moon Bay, people just trying to get home. But no, this is definitely people trying to leave from all directions of Half Moon Bay, from downtown, from southbound, and coming from northbound, all trying to get on the 192. And one thing that didn't happen that normally we have tests for was the tsunami alarm did not go off. We have these tests every month about the tsunami alarm, and it's supposed to be heard all throughout Half Moon Bay, and it did not go out, or at least I did not hear it.
But you normally hear it when you are in and around Half Moon Bay when the monthly tests go off?
Yes. Yes.
And this time you were right in a normal area that you would have heard them, and you didn't hear them this time. Interesting.
Correct.
Let me ask you a question. You mentioned a moment ago that you grabbed your go bag, and we've been mentioning that, thank goodness, this didn't turn out to be something bigger, but it did remind everyone to be prepared for the worst. And it sounds like you were prepared. How long have you been doing this? What's your advice to folks that are watching?
Yeah, since living in California and always by the water, and also as a former reporter covering this, I've learned to always have a grab and go bag, and basically it's just overnight clothes. In this case, I grabbed also another bag that holds all of our important paperwork, from passports to insurance information, health information. I grabbed my husband's wedding ring and my wedding ring, because my husband works at the hospital and doesn't wear that at the hospital. So I'm like, okay, I'm grabbing those wedding rings. And I grabbed my laptop and my wallet, and that was about it. I didn't really grab too much more from that. I figured, you know what, if there's anything else I need, I'm heading towards the peninsula. I have a credit card. I have money. I can buy whatever else I need once I hit drier land. But, yeah, it's just basically overnight clothes, important paperwork. My car always has water and bars in it because I do a lot of hiking, but you just never know when you get stuck somewhere, especially with all these power outages. And that was the other thing. Because of the power outages, I also made sure that our doors that have bolts were unbolted, so then we'll be able to get in to the house later on.
Gotcha. Elizabeth Valenti, thank you so much for sharing what happened to you and what transpired in Half Moon Bay today, and also just the important information about having that go bag ready with those important documents, because, you know, should the worst happen there, that is exactly what you'll need. Elizabeth, thank you so much for that report. You're looking at a live picture. Just a moment ago, you were looking at the Santa Cruz Harbor. Now we're back at Skyfox, looking over the Ocean Beach area along the San Francisco coast, as we kind of keep an eye on what is happening out there right now. The tsunami warning expired just a short time ago, but you may want to wait a little bit, and we're back to the live picture right now down in Santa Cruz at the harbor right there, as we keep an eye on things in that area as well. Let's get things over now in our continuing team coverage with Kirsten Cafton. He's at San Francisco's Fort Point. Tsunami warning was just canceled. That was issued a short time ago. Certainly some good news for residents around the San Francisco area, Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. You might have just caught it. We just had a U.S. Coast Guard chopper fly overhead along the coastline here. To give you a sense of where we are at Fort Point, which is right at the Golden Gate. If you take a look over here, you can see that the road to Fort Point for vehicles and for pedestrians has been closed. That ordinarily a rather popular tourist spot. As we turn over a little bit to our right, you can see that that entire area has been completely evacuated because of that tsunami warning, which of course has now been lifted. You might have also seen some people gathering here in the area simply because they cannot get to Fort Point right now. We do have a lot of people in the area who wanted to see if they could see any signs of warning has now been lifted, but you can see where they're really looking. As you look at Fort Point there on the edge there, you can see those waves coming in, and a lot of people keeping a very close eye on that area to see if, in fact, we can see anything. Just to give you a sense on what we did here, hold on, we're actually going to turn our camera back now to the gates because it looks as if there might be a U.S. Park officer opening the gate here, possibly for people to return to that area or enter that area over there. We're not quite sure at this point, but there is a blue light in that area, and it looks like that is possibly a U.S. Marshal or a federal police officer reopening the gate here to allow access once again to Fort Point. This is similar to what we saw because we did see a great deal of activity along the coastline on our way here. Our route had us going up Ocean Beach. As we were coming up Ocean Beach, we saw numerous emergency responders in that area talking to people who were in the area, trying to get people out of that area. Right up to Cliff House, which, if you know the geography of the area, you know that Cliff House is off the water. It is fairly high, perched on that cliff. But there were emergency responders, especially in the area of Ocean Beach, trying to talk with folks, trying to get them out of the area. Now, when we did arrive here at Fort Point shortly before noon, we did see a number of people who were here in the area hoping to catch a glimpse of that tsunami coming in. We spoke with one young man on a bicycle. He said he was down here hoping to get a look at, in his words, something historical. And he also had that bicycle, which he said had a turbo mode. It looked like it was an electric bike. So if he really needed to get out of the area quickly, he felt pretty confident that he could do so. So at this point, though, we're not seeing a lot of activity here. We have not seen a real increase in the size of waves. This is the time that we'd heard that those waves would be coming in. So we certainly see waves, of course, coming into the San Francisco Bay. Nothing unusual. But again, here at Fort Point, this area that had been closed off, now reopened to the public. You can see that they're reopening the road for vehicles to drive through. You can see that soon they're going to be reopening access for pedestrians. When we first arrived, just to give you a sense on how seriously they were taking this, we were met by a National Park Service employee at the top of the road close to Battery East in the area who told us the road was closed. They were not allowing anyone to go in. Now we're starting to see vehicles entering the area. We certainly see a lot of pedestrians, some bicycles in the area, people trying to come down here and see if they can see any signs of what was going to be a tsunami. So certainly people very interested in what's going on, trying to see if they can catch a glimpse themselves. And as you see behind me, the road now here to Fort Point now reopened because that tsunami warning has been lifted. People gaining access to the coastline once again. We will continue to follow up on any developments out here along the shoreline in San Francisco. But for now, we are live at Fort Point in San Francisco. Christian Cafton, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Yep, you're standing in front of a sure sign. Things are getting back to normal there. A lot of tourists out taking pictures right by the Golden Gate Bridge. Christian, thank you for that live report. Just a quick update now. BART has resumed normal service. We told you earlier how they had stopped service at the Transbay 2 because of the tsunami warning and, of course, the earthquake that struck as well. But things are getting back to normal at this hour. We just wanted to pass it along to you if you do use BART to get around the Bay Area. All right, joining us now on the phone is Crystal Haddock. She was at the San Francisco Zoo earlier, and we told you that the zoo was shut down and evacuated. We were told by officials there that the animals were secured, but Crystal was actually in the zoo at the time that this was all happening, and she joins us on the phone now to tell us about her experience. Crystal, tell us what you were doing in the zoo when all this happened.
Hey, Andre. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
We actually were just going to the zoo, you know, a regular day, just me and my little one. And then we started to get the notification on our phones, like everybody's phone, you heard just starting doing this alert sound. And we weren't really sure what it was. So we looked at it, and then I see everybody just frantically with their strollers, my mothers, running towards the front of the exit, of the entrance. And we're like, okay, so we should probably take this a little bit seriously.
Wow.
Considering how close we are to the water. So we started to, follow the crowd, and all of a sudden we hear all of these workers with on their walkie-talkies to evacuate. The zoo is closing. The zoo is closing, and then that's when it got a little bit more scarier. So then we're a little bit deeper into the zoo, so we had to kind of rush a little bit. And then as we're exiting, my girlfriend works there. I was like, okay, are you guys closed? She's like, the zoo is closed. The zoo is closed because we're very close to the water. And, you don't really know how to take this. Do we take this seriously? Or, you know what I mean? You get these notifications on your phones, but how serious are they? And it's just me and my little one. She's only 3 years old. So we just kind of went out there, and then everyone was like, just leave. And I see mothers running with their strollers, and it freaked everyone out. And I think it freaked even more people out, seeing other people. When we went to leave, I kind of looked at the water, the beach, and it was very low tide. And I know when tsunamis hit, they kind of bring in the water. So I know there was kind of something was happening, I would like to assume. But we left, and then the 35 to leave to go to a higher ground was completely backed up. So I think everyone just kind of first reaction, and then just get out of there.
That must have been something, though, for you to have seen. The way you described it to me when we were talking on text earlier, you just saw all the moms running with their strollers.
It was crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you see out of a movie normally, but you're sitting there experiencing this in real life, isn't it?
I mean, they're not sending out a text for no reason, so you have to take everything so seriously.
All right, so you exited, I guess, the zoo. All the mothers are home. You and your daughters are.
Zoo.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I did notice, though, when we were leaving, everyone was speeding. I don't know if they were going to their houses to get their belongings, if people that were local. But I did notice everyone was a little bit more frantic on the road.
Yeah, I'm sure
I'm getting out of there.
Yeah, so you're back home now with your girls. Everything's safe. The family's good. It's something to experience, to be sure, and we're glad everyone's okay. But it is a helpful reminder that sometimes when you get these alerts on your phone, that you might want to pay close attention to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Crystal Haddock, thank you so much for joining us live this afternoon. Appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story with us. All right.
Okay, bye-bye. Be
safe. You too. Let's get over to James Torres now. He is in the studio getting reaction from across the Bay Area as we look live. James from Sky Fox just a moment ago over at Ocean Beach. People getting back into the water. Those surfers are trying to catch the next wave there.
That's what they love when they hear news like this, right? I think the scariest part about this was really the alarm that came from your phone. We know that alarm is loud. It's a little obnoxious, but that's the whole point. It's meant to get your attention, to let you know that there's something you need to pay attention to. Now, for the most part, there wasn't much of activity that we could feel super close to the Bay Area, but some of you are telling us that you did. This is our Facebook page. You can go on at any point and comment what your experience has been. But we have been asking folks what you felt, and a lot of you are weighing in. We didn't really expect much, but we did notice that some of you said that you felt a slight jolt in Belmont, a little something down in Sunnyvale. Some said they felt something in Cotati after feeling that earthquake alarm go off. Again, that was up just off the coast of Humboldt County, so hours away from where we are. Lots of aftershakes after, and if you felt something, that's likely what you felt. Now, I think we have a live camera out in the city of Berkeley, and that's because earlier this morning, West Berkeley had put out an evacuation alert. That's not the only town in the Bay Area to do so. A number of them, especially in the East Bay, were calling for evacuation orders. That didn't last very long. Once the tsunami warning was lifted and canceled, all of those evacuation orders were canceled. Most of that seemingly to be done out of an abundance of caution. Now, let's talk about a little closer up to where the epicenter of that earthquake was, because we had a chance to speak to the mayor of the city of Eureka earlier this morning. She gave us a little bit of an idea of what evacuations there looked like.
Currently, we are doing evacuations in some of the areas that could potentially be affected by a tsunami, and that is just as preventative measures. We don't have any details in yet about damages that may or may not have happened, but I'm sure that will be forthcoming.
Yeah, as she mentioned, preventative there in the city of Eureka, very much preventative in places like Berkeley, Albany, other cities here in the Bay Area, all of which, for the most part, have been canceled. Evacuation orders no longer in place. So the mayor of Eureka there, she tells us that they evacuated places like the marina, City Hall, and the wastewater plant, all because those are lower level buildings. They just wanted to get people to higher ground. We've been hearing that same story from people who work in different parts of the Bay Area, just going to higher parts of their buildings that they work in. Now, we keep hearing from the fire department at this time, still try to stay away from the beaches. Surfers, we know, may not listen to those warnings, but at this time, those are the warnings that are still coming from the fire department. For the most part, it seems like all operations are coming back to normal, Andre. But of course, you always just want to be more safe than sorry.
You certainly do want to be more safe than sorry, buddy. As you mentioned, as we saw in that live picture from Sky Fox, that surfer getting back into the water over there at Ocean Beach. James, thank you so much. We want to get to some new video into our newsroom right now. And this is video from Carmichael right now. And this is what it looked like when the earthquake struck. And you could see, you might be able to make out that the water is shaking pretty heavily. This video coming in to our newsroom just a short time ago from the Sacramento area up in Carmichael, where they did experience some of the shaking. Some people down here in the Bay Area said they did feel some of that shaking. We spoke to a seismologist from USGS that was down in Mountain View. She heard a little bit. She experienced a little bit of the shaking, and some people around the Bay Area told us they also experienced it as well. All right, the USGS is holding another briefing right now. We want to get back to it and listen and see if we can get any updates to the earthquake that struck earlier today.
The Shake Alert system operates on the principle of taking about 1 second of data from the earthquake and then processing that information and then making an estimate. It's from those estimates, and actually the earthquake is monitored as it progresses. This is what the system does. And the highest estimate that the Shake Alert system came up with for this event was magnitude 6.9. And so the regions that were alerted for this earthquake correspond really well with the actual size of the earthquake. And I think it's important to realize, too, that all of our earthquake sensors that we use to detect the event are on land. And so we saw, once the shaking reached those first seismic sensors on the coast, that's when the system was activated, and that's when everything went into action. And so what should happen is that, and in many cases, people may have received at least a few seconds of warning time before the strongest shaking arrived at their location. But our advice to people is, if you feel shaking or if you get an alert, to drop, cover, and hold on. Our estimates also show, and also from the data from our interactive map at usgs.gov, also show that intensity levels of shaking as high as intensity 8 were estimated by the Shake Alert system and also ultimately observed by our seismic network. And at MMI, or intensity 8, this is considered to be severe shaking. And so there could be slight damage to really well-designed structures, but considerable construction could have received, sort of common construction could have received considerable damage from this. So people probably saw things falling off of shelves, windows being broken, lots of shaking in the building, heavy furniture being moved. So all of these things are observed for this event. So one thing we are really wanting to make sure that people know is that to stay safe, aftershocks are possible. Be ready for more shaking and be ready to take that protective action. At several earthquakes, at least 3 or 4, since this initial event about an hour and a half ago or so, that we've received additional alert activations, Shake Alert system activations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bob. We'll go ahead and move to our first question from William Mojado. If you could please reiterate your name and your affiliation, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. William Mojado from the Sacramento Bee here. You all said that this was a strong earthquake, yet it's pretty normal for this area. I was wondering if you could put this earthquake in context, kind of historically. When was the last time this region saw this magnitude of earthquake? And yeah.
Sure. So this area does have frequent earthquakes. The last significant earthquake in this area was the Ferndale earthquake in 2022. That released significantly less energy. It was a magnitude 6.4. There are also some other magnitude 6 to 7 earthquakes, 2021 and 2000 16. In 1992, there was a magnitude 7.2 earthquake in this area. So this is an area where sort of, every few years or a few decades, there's a significant earthquake of this time. The largest one we've seen in the last century or so is a magnitude 7.4 in 1922. And it's interesting to note that there are many sort of flavors of earthquakes here. As I mentioned, the complex tectonic system there. Some have a lot of vertical motion. In 1992, the coastal mountain ranges and the coast were actually uplifted quite a bit. In this case, we don't expect a lot of that sort of on-land change. The main effect of this type of earthquake is the strong shaking that Bob described.
Yeah, and to give you some perspective, the event back in 2022, the magnitude 6.4 that Steve mentioned, this particular earthquake was on the order of 8 times bigger than that event in 2022. So.
Great, thanks you guys. Next question from Lizzie Acker. Please name and affiliation.
Hi, my name is Lizzie Acker, and I'm a reporter for the Oregonian in Portland. I had 2 quick questions. Bob, you said, I just want to verify that you said 500,000 people received alerts on their phone?
At least 500,000, and we're waiting for more reports from our other alert delivery partners, but we know from our initial report from the MyShake, our alert delivery provider, MyShake, they delivered over 500,000 alerts to subscribers to this particular alerting product.
Awesome. And then can you tell me, do you know how many of those were in Oregon? Clearly I have an Oregon.
That's a very difficult question to answer because they don't necessarily break it down by state, but you consider there were 2 fairly large cities that were affected, Eugene and Corvallis, with sizable populations, both have universities. And then it's likely as far east as folks on the other side of the Cascades in Bend may have also received alerts as well, that they were kind of on the edge of that. And just to maybe put a little bit of an accent to this too, is that there are many flavors of alerts that are delivered. There's one type of alert from the wireless emergency alert system. It's the same system that delivers Amber alerts to cell phones. And those alerts were delivered as far north into Oregon as far north as Bandon.
Wow. And then my second question, I guess that was my first 2-part question, is the shaking you described, was that all in California or was any felt in Oregon? Do you know?
Yeah, so in order for alerts to be delivered into places like Corvallis and Eugene and in those regions, the experience, the estimated shaking, this is very important, is the Shake Alert system estimates the shaking using about 1 second worth of data initially to make that estimate. What the estimated shaking for people in Corvallis and Eugene might have been something on the order of a heavy truck passing by your house. That's intensity 3. So it's sort of like those vibrations. You wonder, like, what was that? This just happened? Was it a car? Was it whatever? But that's the estimated shaking, and that's where we begin to tell people that something is going on and that they need to take that protective action, drop cover, and hold on. And you may ask the question, well, why do we tell people for such small amounts of shaking for an earthquake like this? Well, it's exactly something like this. Earthquakes can grow in size. And so our goal is to make sure to get alerts to people. We prioritize the people who need the alerts the most, who could feel the heaviest shaking, but also get alerts to people to give them time to take that protective action if the earthquake continues to grow in size and the shaking gets to be stronger.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next questions. There's five people currently with their hands up and 1 in the chat. So I just want to ask you to ask a question, and then we'll come back to you for more questions if you have one. But next up is Hannah Hagman. Name and affiliation.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm with the San Francisco Chronicle. I have a clarifying question. At the last press conference, which was super helpful, I asked a question about the earthquake that occurred near Cobb, California, which was initially estimated in the 5 to 6 range. And then Christine Gould mentioned that it was a much smaller event and then, quote, reassessed to a 2.5 magnitude. My colleague brought up that on the USGS site, I think that's still a higher number. So I just wanted to follow up. Is that accurate that it was reassessed at a 2.5 magnitude?
It was. I perhaps to refresh the page, but the number was adjusted to magnitude 2.5.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Could I ask one more question, Paul, or do you want to come back to me?
A quick question.
Okay. Just, Stephen, I was really interested in the science aspect you're talking about on how this earthquake occurred. Can you just also clarify? So it sounds like we understand this to be, there was right lateral motion on the fault, and there was more. Can you talk about the horizontal versus vertical and the difference in damage? I'm really interested in that.
Sure, and I'll just say this is all a little bit preliminary. We do continue to do analyses on the data to make sure we know exactly how these faults move. But based on the history of how earthquakes in this area occur and our current understanding of the data, this is a fault that trends east to west offshore Northern California, just south of Eureka area. Petrolia is the nearest populated place, which is a little town just south of Eureka in the mountains. And there's two sort of different parts of the Pacific plate, so the oceanic crust underwater, and the plate to the north, the Gorda plate, is moving to the east underneath North America, and it's moving faster than the plate to the south. And so because of that, this difference in velocity is accommodated on this Mendocino fault. And in this case, it appears that the fault, the earthquake was what we call right lateral, so the plate to the north moves farther to the right. If you're standing on the fault, that's what it would look like if you're down there on the floor of the ocean. And so, this is largely horizontal motion. And this is similar to the San Andreas fault, which is the most famous fault in California, has earthquakes, and those largely have horizontal motion. So they generate a lot of shaking, but it's not like one piece of land goes way up higher than the other. And there are other faults, for example, the Cascadia subduction zone to the north. That's the long fault that traces offshore the entire distance up into offshore Canada. And that one tends to have a lot of vertical motion because there's actually one plate diving under another. So in this case, two plates sliding back against one another and largely horizontal motion. And so that is less likely to lift up the water and create a tsunami than if the ground actually moved vertically quite a bit.
Yeah, imagine taking a cup of water and a knife and sort of slicing through the cup of water, and nothing really moves. The knife just sort of goes through, and that the water's moved really.
Yep.
Great, thank you for that analogy and that explanation. Next up is Monica Woods, affiliation, please.
Hi there, Monica Woods, ABC 10 in Sacramento. Thanks again for doing this follow-up presser. I want to put into context and perspective, perhaps, that this was an offshore earthquake, 7.0. A lot of people reaching out to us that they were in the 1989 San Francisco one, which was smaller. So what are the similarities and the differences in an offshore earthquake or a landmass earthquake?
So the things that really affect how much shaking people feel is how far they are from where the earthquake is generated and how deep that earthquake is in the crust. So in this case, the earthquake is not particularly deep. We're still working on a good estimate, but it's on the order of, 10 to 20 kilometers deep, but it's fairly far offshore. So if the earthquake happens farther away, there's less shaking. And in the case of the 1989 earthquake, it occurred underneath the Santa Cruz Mountains in the Bay Area, and the shaking radiated under a lot of urban areas. And, a lot of the damage was due to things like weak soils and liquefaction. And so this, because it's farther offshore, farther from populated places, we just don't anticipate the sort of humanitarian effects that we see from these earthquakes that occur under the land.
Great, thank you, Steve. Next up, Tara or Tara.
Hi there, it's Tara Duggan from the San Francisco Chronicle, another Chronicle person. I appreciate it. Just wanted to get a little more information about the tsunami warning and why it was, first announced and then changed. It sounds like you kind of addressed that a little bit with the science earlier, but could you go into that a little more in detail?
I think it's important to emphasize that NOAA is the agency that handles the tsunami warning. So we're not really privy to that system. We see that as they are issued. But certainly an earthquake that's this energetic offshore underwater is something that is going to be a cause for concern for tsunamis. And it's possible that some of the initial estimates of motion made it look like there was a possibility of a tsunami. And once those were refined, the chances of a tsunami actually went down. And so that's a little bit speculative, but that's our current understanding of things. And that could be updated as we continue to look at these data.
Okay, thank you. So you don't think it had perhaps anything to do with the type of earthquake it might have been, or which fault it was exactly coming from?
Yeah, we try to agencies, and we, like I said, NOAA is a different agency than USGS. They try to react quickly and send out warnings based on the best available information at that time. And so the initial information to them obviously looked like there was a probability of a tsunami that was high enough to issue a warning, and that was refined later as more information came in. So this is how these systems work sometimes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Great, thank you. Cron TV, you're on. Okay, we're not hearing you. I saw your mic came undone, but I'm not hearing you yet. Okay, you might want to check the mic settings in. I'm going to go ahead and move to Ravenna right now, Cron, but check your mic settings in the settings box there. Ravenna, and affiliation, please.
Yeah, hi, Ravenna Koenig, NPR. I joined about 2 minutes late, so apologies if you answered this, but you had said that, in places there was intensity 8, there could be slight damage to well-designed structures, common structures receiving considerable damage. How widespread would you expect those impacts to be, and where, would you expect to see them?
Well, Steve, you want to take that question? Or is that,
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. So one thing that we know is think of an earthquake as like dropping a rock into a lake, and you have the waves sort of moving away. And typically we see the highest levels of shaking closest to the epicenter of that earthquake. Of course, the epicenter of this event was off the coast, like 40 miles off the coast of California. So we see by observation on the event page as well, the heaviest levels of shaking, the intensity 8, where you're getting damage to structures closest to basically the coastline. So you're talking Eureka, Arcata, sort of those cities that are sitting, Humboldt Bay region, where people are right along the coast. And of course, the intensities decrease the farther you get away from that event. And there are some exceptions to that. And Steve was mentioning this earlier. In the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, even though it occurred in the Santa Cruz Mountains, we still saw some really intense shaking in places like West Oakland, especially the freeway, the cypress structure that collapsed, and also in the Marina District. There are sort of site conditions, loose soils, that actually make seismic waves slow down and get bigger when they hit those softer soils. So you see some of those differences, but generally, what you can say, and on the event page, you can see the highest levels of shaking that are closest to where the epicenter of the earthquake is off the coast.
The one
you're listening to the USGS. We're going to keep monitoring their press conference and bring you any relevant information as it comes out of that press conference. But right now, we want to get down to KTVU's Jesse Gary. He is live in Santa Cruz for us this afternoon. Jesse, an area that we've been keeping an eye on throughout the last couple of hours.
Yes, good afternoon. And this is probably the best outcome for this, which is not much going on Santa Cruz, just a beautiful day. As you know, that the tsunami warning has been canceled. People did feel the initial earthquake here, though. I spoke to a man who said he was parked in his vehicle and he felt it, the rocking. He felt, as he says, as he described it, as though somebody was like standing up on the bumper and bouncing up and down. And so that's what he initially thought, maybe a prank from a friend, and then realizing it's an earthquake. And then, of course, the tsunami warning has followed that. They have since been canceled. The surf, we're standing on Cliff Drive. That's Cowell's Beach behind me, and the wharf and the amusement park behind that. The waves are very gentle at this point. There is not any dangerous surf. We don't even see surfers. Obviously, the tsunami warning was for everyone at the coast to get out of the water and move away from the coast to higher ground, and it appears that people heeded that warning because there are no surfers in the water, and I don't even see any people out on Cowell's Beach. So good job by people here in Santa Cruz. Additionally, the Santa Cruz County office of the OES office met for a short time. They had initially scheduled a 30-minute meeting that was shrunk to about 15 minutes. That just ended. So we are headed over to the OES office to try to talk to them to find out exactly how their preps all came together for something like a tsunami, a major tsunami warning, and any areas where they need to improve. But from what I'm hearing initially from officials, everything worked exactly as it should. People were forewarned. They moved away from the water and from the coastal areas. And now that the warning has been canceled, people are starting to migrate back to the coast on what is an absolutely gorgeous day here in Santa Cruz. And that's where we're live this afternoon. Jesse Gary, KTVU Fox 2 News. We'll head back to you up and over in Oakland.
All right. Interesting, Jesse, that people were able to feel the earthquake down there in Santa Cruz as well. We appreciate that live report. We can tell you we're getting video now into our newsroom of some of the damage that's happening here. You're looking at video from a pool where you could see the shaking. This was taken right around the time that the earthquake was striking. And as you heard Jesse mention a moment ago, I mean, this has happened in Humboldt County. It was off the coast there, the earthquake, when it struck, but people all along up and down the coast felt it and experienced it in one way or another. And this is just another video coming into the newsroom kind of highlighting what people across the Bay Area were experiencing. We heard from Crystal Haddock earlier, who was at the San Francisco Zoo, and she said she was there with a lot of the moms, and she saw everyone with their strollers running for the exits once they got that earthquake and tsunami warning on their phone. All right, we want to get now, we might have some other video to show you here. Actually, we'll get to that video in just a moment, but first I want to get back to Mark. He's in the Weather Center. He's got a look at what is happening around the Bay Area weather-wise today, Mark, as this kind of tampers down a little bit.
Yeah, that's right, Andre. In fact, yeah, of course, we're not talking about any major storms for us. There's some sunshine, but we continue to focus on the canceled tsunami warning. So we're kind of, this doesn't happen too often for us, and so we're kind of figuring it out as we go along, especially with the advent of all these warnings and the cell phones happening. So you can see the timeline today. Now, a magnitude 7.0 quake that happened in Humboldt County. That was 10:44 this morning. The tsunami warning issued roughly 5 minutes later. The projected arrival time, this is when we were all just getting all these warnings, getting prepared to get away from the coastline. The projected arrival time was for 12:10 in San Francisco. And then, thankfully, the tsunami warning was canceled at 11:54 this morning, so that projected arrival time never happened. Showing you this, now we do, as I mentioned, we don't get a lot of tsunami alerts here in the Bay Area. It's kind of good to review this because it will happen again. And you can see just kind of the breakdown here with the warning, the advisory, and the watch. So the watch is the lowest level, saying, hey, heads up, a tsunami could be possible, and then an advisory means we could have maybe some strong currents or some waves right near the immediate coastline. And then today, the warning, that's the urgent deal, because there's a 7.0 quake so close to the Bay Area. There's not much time for warning. So whenever that 7.0 quake happens near Cape Mendocino, there is a chance that that warning could be issued. We talked about this earlier, and this is a very active area near the coastline of Northern California. You can see the San Andreas Fault, which we know so well here in the Bay Area. You have the North American Plate, the Pacific Plate, and the Gorda Plate. And you were hearing about some of the researchers from the USGS saying some of those plates just kind of slipping underneath each other. That is the main cause of this triple junction, and that's where you have a lot of seismic activity, and that's where unfortunately we could have tsunami generation. But thankfully, that is not the case for today. But that's kind of what's happening with the geology here, with those plates all interacting with each other. So once again, the magnitude 7.0 quake, you can see the coverage. Just as you can actually go onto the USGS website and report your experience, at least in terms of the shaking. And as you would expect, you'd expect some strong shaking out right near the epicenter. This is near in Humboldt County, near Eureka, near a small town called Petrolia. and closer to Ferndale as well. So that was where you can feel the strong shaking. And then down in the Bay Area, some reports of some weak shaking here. It looks like maybe some light shaking in parts of Mendocino County. So this is all reported to the USGS. So taking a look here, once again, that warning has been canceled. There is the epicenter, that magnitude 7.0 quake. It was kind of changing around in terms of the intensity with maybe a 6.5, 6.7, and then it was actually confirmed as 7.0. And as you would expect, you've been hearing about this with the aftershocks. These are all of the aftershocks reported around the region. This is above a magnitude 2.0, and there's in fact some more population here on this map here. So if I were to put a big box around all these, there's a tally, and it's showing you about 49 reports, and the maximum magnitude was right around a magnitude 5 in that area. And with this much energy released, you would expect more aftershocks for this portion of the state over the next day, over the next couple days, or maybe next week, as you heard from some of the researchers. Outside right now, if we can take a look at some of the visuals from the coast, of course, the warning is, to get away from the coast, and if you can, because and for all the people who wanted to actually approach the coast to see what a tsunami would look like, that is the big no-no. You do not want to do that. You want to clear the area, and thankfully all is clear right now as we take a look at San Francisco, the ferry building, and the Embarcadero. So all is clear for right now. I don't know if we have any other cameras for you coming up around the bay, but just thankfully the warnings have been canceled. It's showing you this. I believe this is from Berkeley, and not too much to report here. And I will say the Japan quake, that was back in 2013, I believe, or 2011, excuse me, that was a magnitude 9.0 quake, and that was at such a distance away, we actually had time to prepare for some of that energy to approach the Bay Area coastline, and we did see the effects, especially with the Santa Cruz Harbor the next day. Today, we did not have much warning at all, and that's as a result that warning was issued. Yeah. But thankfully, Andre, things are in the clear right now.
But we are getting new video into the newsroom now of the extent of the damage here. We leave you of this video here. This is from a grocery store in Ferndale, where you can see that the shaking from the 7.0 earthquake knocked things off shelves. This is just some of the damage in that area. We understand Mike McGuire, state senator, says state is sending assistance to Humboldt and Delnor County to help in the aftermath of the shaker, the 7.0 earthquake that hit Humboldt County. We'll have much more coming up in our next newscast at 4.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Alex Savage. Welcome in here to Like It or Not. You know how the show works. We put out the hot topics to our panel, and they will let us know if they like it or not. A fantastic panel assembled here today. We have Tori Gaines joining us here, and Rosemary Orozco as well.
Hello, hello.
Good to have you both.
Yes, happy start of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to let you both know you're here on a very special day for Like It or Not. We today are celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Like It or Not. We started the show exactly 1 year ago.
Oh my
Congratulations
gosh.
to us.
We did it, guys. We're turning one. Congratulations to us.
We made it. All those hot takes by everyone, and they kept us on the air.
I was going to say we all still have jobs, which is great, because I know, there were some spicy topics that we covered. Literally spicy, as in spicy chips.
Right,
I remember talking about that a lot. So.
Yeah, but it's been a lot of fun. So with the idea of anniversaries in mind, so what do you think about people who track their work anniversaries? Do you know folks like this who mark their how many years? Tori, you're looking the other way. And so I'm curious. I'm gonna go to you first.
I would say yes. The vibe is definitely. You got to celebrate everything. You have to celebrate everything you can. I think life can be so challenging, but when you really lean into those special moments, we were just talking about. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary here at KTVU, so it's been a thrilling time. We're very lucky.
What are the chances we'd be talking about that? That would be your first question out the gate.
I know. It actually was perfect. What about you, Rosemary? Do you track your work anniversaries?
I don't, but I feel like everybody else tracks it for me. For example, because when I came to KTVU, it was to start the weekend morning show.
Right.
And so on occasion, in fact, she did it recently, Claudine said, Rosemary, when did you come? And so when I tell her, she goes, okay, yeah, like when I started, it's for a reference mark for her for some reason.
Right.
And then I feel like, and I don't do it very often, but when I get on LinkedIn, a bunch of people have,
they know exactly. Oh, they're wishing you.
Yes,
Well, it tracks you.
congratulations. Yes,
And it
it's like
tracks
it
it for
must
you.
like trigger.
Right, right.
some
It
type
sends
of
a
work.
note out.
Yeah, yeah.
On your
It's like I
anniversary.
get the Facebook thing that reminds me it's my birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
In case I've forgotten.
So
yeah.
even though I don't celebrate it so
Me,
much?
I don't really track. I don't track my work anniversary per se. Like I couldn't tell you the exact date that I started here at KTVU, and I mean, and I've been here quite a while, but I couldn't tell you the exact date. I could generally tell you how many years it's been approximately. I think 13 or so, something like that, 14 maybe. But in any case, I don't like mark every year. Can I ask, do you like every year, do you know the date and you kind of, you sort of say to yourself like, oh cool, it's like
something
another, and whatever